parent, because it's the infant gives the cues to the parent, but the parent also gives cues of safety back to that infant. So they're looking for those cues, and if they don't get that, then they don't feel that security within them.
Right. That's exactly right. So, okay, so people have a book that they can write in, and it's an interactive book as well.
Yes, you mean for the older children?
Yes.
I have a book called the Magic Rainbow Hug.
Mm-hmm.
And basically with that, it's a metaphoric story. And in metaphoric storytelling, it's very different from direct children's stories, meaning you could, if the child has, say, anxiety, in a metaphoric story, you could tell them that story, and the child would have no clue. They wouldn't even understand that story had something to do with the fact that they're having anxiety.
Yes.
And that they're interspersed embedded messages within that story that help that child to calm and relax. But in the directive stories, it may be more like, oh, here's Susie, and she has some worries, and she has anxiety, and that, it happens through the day. Do you see what I mean? And the child would know when you're reading it, it's about me, and that's about anxiety, and that's why Mom is reading this story to me.
That's that word I'm hearing suddenly, anxiety. Yeah. Oh, so as instead of a direct story using those words, you use a metaphoric story. Tell us what that's like.
That's what we call an indirect or a metaphoric story, parallel metaphor. And so I love that type and that's the type of story I'm trained in. And that goes back to Ericksonian, Milton's work.
Wow.
And so I'm trained in Ericksonian hypnosis and understanding. But basically for children, we do not put children in a trance.
Right.
They go into their own state of trance when you're with them. So they just are in that right brain anyway. And that's when you can tell them the metaphoric story. And I have a short version that I do at my office because the book version is a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But the beauty with that story, and, it's just to get emails from parents or grandparents even, and other therapists maybe that use that story. And by the way, not to get off track, but in the state of Florida, they have a coalition for domestic violence. And they actually bought that book and put it in all the packets that were going into the homes for the children that had witnessed domestic violence. And they said the reason is because they said this story is therapeutic, but it does not need a therapist to implement the story. And it helps children to understand that touch is good and that touch be good. And again, with the kinesthetic storytelling, if we're therapists that are demonstrating it, we demonstrate it on a pillow while the parent or a back of a large stuffed animal, and the parent practices on their own child. Because what this goes back to part of, I haven't mentioned, but I did write an edited book called Touch and Child Counseling and Play Therapy, an ethical and clinical guide. And I just had some research that came out this month, actually in April, about in the International Journal of Play Therapy, and where I had, but what I researched and what I'm trying to get to and tell you is there's a lot of concern about therapists touching children, liability. So what I said, well, we know touch is important for relationships and for healing and for connection and for attachment. So can I develop a method where we can teach the parent and guide the parent how to provide that good, caring touch through a story, because we know it's the joy in the relationship that helps build attachment. But I'm not touching that child. I'm not building it. I don't want to build an attachment relationship with that child. I want to facilitate that for the parents to give that, enhance attachment, build attachment, grow attachment, corrective experiences of attachment. And I can teach them by, modeling on a teddy bear. And then the parents, I guide them to do that with their own child. And that's the beauty of this. so much research right now is coming out about the importance of touch, oxytocin, and that it releases that within the child. It lowers immediately, simultaneously, lowers cortisol when the parents have good caring touch to the child, so it helps decrease anxiety. And and in my book, The Magic Rainbow Hug, I give like a 2-page kind of introduction to parents so they can understand all of that and what, the story is all about. And anyway, so I know I'm going on.
No. This is wonderful. So give us an example of your metaphoric story about the magic rainbow.
Okay. So basically, I've created a story that kind of follows the weather.
Oh, good.
So basically, all the kinesthetic motions are weather motions. So they draw. So they draw the sun on the child's back, but the story might be it's about these 2 children and their puppy dog that are out in the in a park, an imagination station park. That's the name of it, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and they're enjoying themselves. Oh my goodness! They look up into the sky, and it looks like it's getting ready to storm. Well, where can they go? They have to find a safe place where they can go. And so now they run, and maybe we'll ask the child if in the story it's a castle. And I actually had children draw the images from my story. Oh. But in the office, I might ask the child and use their imagination. Oh, where do you think they can go? And they might say, oh, well, there's a cave or there's a tent. I had one child say, there's a tent. Or then another child says, there's a tree house. But basically, when they go there, then we place the hands on the back and say, now they're all safe and protected inside.
Oh.
And so the metaphor of that is you're safe, you're protected inside. So I could say to a child, now in this office, you're all safe, you're all protected. In here, you can tell Miss Janet anything, But if I say it through the story or through the metaphor, it goes to their unconscious. You're safe.
Yes.
You're protected. So then just when you ask me, what's an example of a metaphor? So then, we can use then we have the storm that comes and that they huddle in there and they're all still safe and protected inside this, environment. And then, of course, then the strong wind after we have different weathers. We have the lightning, we have thunder, but we're doing those motions on the child's back. So we're thunder on the child's back and we're doing zigzag for lightning, and then we might, have, hail that comes down. And there's actually, in the book, there are instructions to the parents specifically, take your hand and put it into a fist and draw, and do a circle with rays of light, you know what I mean? So I give specific instructions to the parents for how to do these exact motions. And you know what? Here's the thing. I put in, the front of the book, that's optional. If the child does not want to be touched or not in the mood for that, hey, we don't do it. We have the child, and we always have to ask them ahead, would you want that? Is that okay if mommy does this with you or daddy does this? And if they say no, absolutely we have to respect them. And so that's part of the teaching and part of the understanding is we have to respect the child, and that the child has to know that they have to be able to say no to touch, even if it's a nurturing touch or coming from their loving parent. And so I think that's part of the conversation that we need to have. Because, and this gets me on another bandwagon.
You go, girl.
Right. The inappropriate experiences of touch that, why did we get there? And this is what I talk about in the first chapter of my book, is the concerns that it has not been an open discussion. And when you look at the literature and you look at the research, and I had to get into it, and you write a book on the topic of touch with children, you have to, understand from many different angles, who's written about it. And what I learned is that there's so much research out there, so much conversation for adults and touch, especially in psychotherapy.
Yes.
Very little has addressed it for children.
It's amazing.
And so
people are afraid. They're afraid of it. Even clinicians, professionals, as you talked about earlier, liability. That a child therapist cannot touch a child.
There's a tremendous amount of concern about liability.
Yeah.
In a rare situation, a child say you touched me inappropriately when the therapist is like, oh, no, I didn't. You know?
Yeah. No, I can appreciate.
So I say, okay, and there's some somatic therapies out there, especially for adults. So I'm saying, okay, if we have some somatic type of therapies for children, in my opinion, the best way to do it is we take the available caregivers. Mm-hmm. That could be a child in foster care, so that's a foster parent. Mm-hmm. If it's a child that's with a grandparent for whatever reason, and they're the caretakers. Hey, we take the available caretakers and we say, we know touch is important. We know that joy in the relationship, and this goes back to Bowlby's work, is that there's two ways to build attachment. One is the consistency of a caretaker to provide, to lower distress within a child. Mm-hmm. Consistently, or good enough. That's what we always say, the good enough parent. And the other is through the joy in the relationship. Joy builds attachment, and it's not only for parents with infants, but if you look at it, even for adult relationships. Why do people, get married? Why do they want to have a second date with that person? Well, maybe they had some enjoyment in that relationship, and that joy builds attachment. But it starts with infants and that relationship that they had. I don't know if you watched the Oprah interview. It was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now. It was on 60 Minutes. And Oprah was interviewing some of the people about trauma, some of the well-known people. And Bruce Perry was being interviewed. And so she was talking to Bruce about people who have experienced trauma. And she said, well, how do we know for the people that experience trauma? Of course, I'm paraphrasing it in my best memory of this. But she asked him, she said, how do we know how well someone is going to do after they've had experiences of trauma in their childhood?
Tell us quickly, we have no time.
So, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I'll finish this, because his answer said, he goes, well, that depends on their relationships.
Right. Beautiful. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships. And thank you, Janet. Thank you very much, Janet Courtney, Dr. Janet Courtney, certified play therapist.